Good to have you here. We are going to be starting today this new study about the book of Joanna de Angelis, Empty Life, that will help us in this work of inner transformation, of understanding ourselves, the world, everything. And it always it made an impact on me when this book was released. The medium we know is Divaldo Franco. I think it was last year that it was released in Portuguese, and with the title, um, because the first one that was released, it was this one, Empty Lives. The second one that came a few months after is called A Full Life. And even before reading the books at that point, I was really overtaken by the way she does things. First she touches in what is it going with you now? What is happening? Are you feeling fulfilled? What are the values that currently we see in the world? And what are the things that we have to be paying attention? What about our behaviors? Kind of leading us to see if somehow we are not leading what is called empty lives. And then as a solution for all of that, she comes with the second book that is A Full Life, giving us tools to how we can or where we should pursue this new values that will lead us to feel as someone living a full life. Remember that we are still living in a world, let's call it of transition now. Let's not call it trials and atonements anymore, but we are not even already there to a world of regeneration, but we are in a transition phase. And of course, in a transition phase, like very much, a gardener that has to work the soil to start a new plantation, you have to revolve the earth, right? The soil, the ground, you have to revolve all that. So that's why there is so much turmoil, not only in our personal lives, but also in everyone's life, in everywhere in the world today. I don't know about you, but everyone that I talk to is going through something. It can be a little more, a little less, but it's something. Everyone is going through something, and something one after the next. Yesterday, I wrote to Divaldo. I had to discuss some things with him. And then he wrote me back that we are in a time where we are living one after the next afflictions. So when it seems that, okay, I think I had my share for the month, something else happens. So he said, this is the time, exactly this time where, you have to revolve and find everything else that shouldn't be there. Um, so she come with this book that is 30 chapters. This first one that we are going to be studying today, it's quite hard. I have to confess to you that I myself don't know if I understood it completely, because it talks about a lot about the psychologists, the beginning, but there is a reason for her to bring this up. But from the second chapter on, it will be, I think, easier for all of us. So I'm going to share with you my screen, and we will start reading it and then talking about it, and trying to make our discoveries together, right? Um, the reason why she starts talking about first about the forerunners and the field of psychology and analyzing the problems is because, it was when, in a certain way, human beings started to pay more attention to the inner side, and not just, with the emotions, take valuing the emotions versus only being worried about what could be wrong in the physical aspect. We have to remember that there was a time that if people showed any sign, if someone showed any sign of mental impairment or mental health situation, they would just put this people, this person in an asylum, and that's it. We don't know what to do with. And with them, they would use those methods that would make them even worse and not deal with that. And sometimes, even when people were suffering from their depression, they would ensanguinate the person, say, no, it's the humors of the blood that is not okay. So this is why it is a huge step. And so let's start reading now. When Sigmund Freud started his research on hysterical patients specifically, it was the beginning of one of the most wonderful and timely interpretations of the human psyche, giving rise to a veritable culture revolution by demystifying sex, its functions, and freeing it from the Victorian hypocrisy that had reigned triumphant. It was a period of unexpected interpretations of emotional disorders and disturbing somatizations, which were able to be treated with care, promoting less turbulent and disastrous life. So as we were seeing, it was actually with Freud that brought, knowledge, broader knowledge in terms of all of the problems that we were presenting with emotions. And when we think about that, my God, it was like, 20 centuries before we arrived there. I mean, if we only mention after Jesus, okay, can you imagine that for 20 centuries we were living, I mean, in even worse conditions, because the more the spirit is deficient, so to say, in terms of achieving perfection, the more it will present mental imbalances. And so here is when he started seeing that there was something else. He tried to connect that to, still to some of the physiological aspects, like, the sex, and how, there was all this or misinterpretations of sexual life and sexual relationships, but he was already paying attention to this kind of emotion. So although the discovery of the sexual libido caused surprise and receive an exaggerated significance, it did foster broader perceptions and understanding about human conflicts. So it was interesting because at the same time that he was connecting emotion, he still kind of linked the emotions to a physical aspect of life, that we know that although many people may consider physical just as a sex, that's a physical pleasure, but at the end we understand that unless it is connected with emotions, it's not that much it doesn't bring that much fulfillment as well. So he came from one side to the other side, but it was already showing and calling the attention of everyone to say, there is something else. There is all this, psychological aspect that we have to understand. I'm going to continue reading just this first page, because it's where he brings all the theories, and then we stop to comment. Sometime later, Alfred Adler, disagreeing with Freud initiated investigations into conflicts involving human inferiority, which culminated in the psychology of individual inferiority, which culminated in the psychology of individual development, and with the cooperation of Karen Horney, the new Freudian school formed. Horney, moreover, disagreed with Freud's position that there were differences in the psychology of women and men. She demonstrated that such disparities result more from social and cultural phenomena than from biology. So then, for everyone that is in the field of psychology, or therapy, psychiatry, everyone have heard, of course, of Freud and Alfred Adler and Karen Horney. And so Joanna de Angelis is saying here that we came from a point, because here, I mean, I'm not even expert in this field to go deeper in that, but just for us to analyze why Joanna de Angelis is bringing all of this to us is, we came from a point that there was almost nothing. And if anyone presented any kind of mental imbalances, just find a way to get rid of them, either by institutionalizing them, or by insanguinating them, that at the end will result in death anyway, because taking blood out is not going to fix you from mental problems. And there of course there was some interpretation that came with Freud. Alfred Adler started working with what Freud brought and refined it even more, and Karen brought also the women perspective, saying there are differences here in terms of emotion. And when we talk about biology, is basically the same thing. So now is when we come from a world of pure material things, and started seeing emotions, it started seeing us beyond the physical body. Of course, everything with a name, to understand from where all of this come from. If it is not the body, can we say, and of course they were saying that, and even till today, that is just the brain? Or should we go through another path, which is where Joanna de Angelis is going to lead us here? So she continues saying, meanwhile, along the same lines, Carl Gustav Jung held that the libido was an extraordinary psychic energy representing all the forces of life, and not only those of a sexual nature. Jung sought to analyze the ancient marks imprinted on the unconscious, and adopted the doctrine of the archetypes, promoting fulfillment lives for all those who were suffering bewildering mental conflicts. So with Jung, which is, the one that really approximates more, this idea of the spirit, this idea of this psychic energy that not necessarily needs to be channeled only through, sexual relationships, but it can be likewise be channeled in other kinds of works. People that dedicate themselves a lot to work, to art, to composing music, to painting, to writing, all of that, we use this energy that is, like he says here, related to the forces of life. And also he brought the aspects of archetypes. Archetypes are, he classified human nature into a few divisions, like, this is one kind of, one type of person that we can find, another type of person that we can find, another type of individual. It's interesting because there is a study that sometimes I present them as well, that a friend of mine put together, showing that the Jesus disciples, if we analyze each one of them, we will see that they have different characteristics. And in a way, I mean, even when we put together astrology into this aspect, we can relate to types, different types, So Peter was all the like, we know, was impulsive, and immediately he go and remove his sword and cut off the ear of the soldier that wanted to imprison Jesus. So he was this man that was at least at the beginning very impulsive. Then we had Judas, that was more concerned about the material powers. Then we have John, that was more the pure representation of love. So each one of us, they're showing a different archetype. And so this is when she's talking here about, the difference that exists. I mean, the different colors that each one of us have, but in a way, all of us will fit into one of the description of these archetypes. So each era of humanity is marked by psychologically repressive circumstances responsible for grueling somatized illnesses. So when there is repression, this will backfire, so to say. You may, let's say someone that is trying to overcome an addiction. It will be, I think we can all agree that many times when we see someone trying to overcome an addiction, they will find a substitute. So let's say they are no longer going to drink alcohol. They started having more candies or ice creams or chocolates. They will start a new habit. So in a way, unless we really understand, we really go deep into the why, how to do it, instead of just reading ourselves from one habit, okay, that this is going to be much better, not to drink alcohol exaggerately, than to just have, ice creams, for example. But it is still showing that we are not necessarily huge. There is still something that was more imposed than we, on our right minds, will say, this is the best course, things that I can do. So let me stop here, see if you wanted to say something or bring any comments or even go deeper into what I just said. Nope. Okay, so let's continue. Current science and cutting edge technology now provide an almost limitless view regarding the life of the human being, providing a wide range of information that multiplies from one moment to the next, tormenting today's culture. So here, if on one hand, we have all these possibilities that we have in terms of limitless, way of seeing things, analyzing things, communicating with each other, it still doesn't mean that this all new technologies cannot represent a certain form of torment. This rapid, extremely voluminous and varied accumulation of knowledge has not been digested properly. Hence, the rise of dissatisfaction, in addition to fear, uncertainty, existential emptiness. It is not uncommon for us, especially in the new generation, to see, you know, this rise of discomfort, dissatisfaction, uncertainty, because okay, remember that famous saying, ignorance is bliss, right? When we didn't know that much what were happening to others, to other countries, we were just, taking care of our own selves and not being involved in all that is happening worldwide. Like today, I mean, I'm sure in a way we can even. I remember the first time that I was watching live on TV a war that was happening in Iran, Iraq. I don't remember, but it felt so surreal, right? And of course, when we have all this information about the bad things that are happening, the wars, the conflicts, all of that, it brings a weight that we are not capable of dealing with. And if it is hard for us that are more mature, have more experience in life, we can only think about our youngsters and teenagers and those that are in their 20s or 30 years old. I mean, it's too much. It brings the knowledge, it brings the awareness. Of course, it is part of the growing pains, but it has to be with that's why a spiritual and understanding base. Otherwise, you look around and you say, what's the purpose of life? Everything is bad. I just see people suffering. I just see bad people prevailing, provoking wars, prejudices, and so that's why it is so hard. Any questions or comments? So we live in an age of possession and power, of flaunting and finding pleasure without the consequence of inner harmony and spiritual enrichment. Appearance has replaced reality, and the important thing is not the inner being, but the ego, which provokes envy and competition on the stage of illusion. In a way, existential meaning, the objective of life, and the transcendent focus of self-realization have been lost. Consequently, pathological behaviors are on the increase, and the masked ball takes on a dark aspect when alcohol, drug addiction, and unfettered sex start to madden groups in depression. The advance towards the abyss is in a fall caused by suicide, self-abandonment, and uncontrolled violence has become an indisputable reality in the social evolutionary process. All this is a result of the existential void that has taken possession of individuals because they do not find support in the sentiment of love, which has been disappearing little by little from their moral development. Today, people are very much afraid of showing their emotions, of having this kind of feelings, of demonstrating this kind of feelings. It seems that everyone is just looking for pleasures in material things, in amassing things, in having power, in having money, and everything that is going to satisfy the ego, represent the egocentric thinking just about myself. With that, there is always this competition. Oh, he has it better than I do, so I have to do more. And with that, there is a complete oblivion of thinking about the spiritual values, thinking about us as spirits to go into a transcendent spiritual focus. And this void, because it's a never ending competition, you get something next day, like, let's say about the the iPhone, right? You have the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, and the 6, that there is always the next one that you have to acquire, things like that. And of course, the pressure that we will feel will lead us into um, things that can momentarily help us not to think that much about this pressure, like alcohol, drug addiction, sex, everything, just to try to fill this void that we have, and that mostly can be characterized as depression, that can lead even to worst results like suicide, for instance. And unfortunately, in this time of transition, the good values are still not that much appreciated, right? That's why we repress ourselves in demonstrating feelings of higher nature. Any comments or questions so far?
Well, I don't know when this book was written, but it sounds like it could have been written today because it's exactly how things are.
Yeah.
Exactly. When was
Uh, I think it was 2020, 2 years ago, or 21st. I'm not so sure, Marilyn. I'll have to check, but it's really recent. And yes, it's very today.
And
Anything else?
yeah, and Yasara, even with all that we understand, even as spiritual beings and spiritists, we understand this, but then why do we continue to say it's so difficult to grasp all this? We have everything we need, and yet we're just not paying attention to it. Or what? This scares me in a way, because we're so bombarded with so much. I understand God knows what we need, absolutely. But they tell you here, we have to keep ourselves in what is right and following what we know. I I, I believe we're gonna get better, but during that time before we get there, what? Oh my God, I don't want to say I'm scared. I'm not scared. I understand. But Joanna de Angelis says it like it is. She tells you what's going on, and with no qualms about giving excuses. It is what it is. There's so much to learn still. 20 centuries, 100 centuries will go by, Josiah, and I think I hope we're not in the same situation. Please don't say that it's then that kind of.
Yep.
Kind of
It sounds like she wrote this to you yesterday.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Today, yesterday, last night. It's not scary, it's informative, and it's good. We have to know this, absolutely. And we work harder to understand. But this is not so difficult to understand in the sense what she's saying. We're going through this.
Yeah. There is a message from Emmanuel, the spiritual mentor of Chico Xavier, that he is about, the knowing and the doing, right?
Yeah.
And I'll take this moment also to advertise our Spiritist Symposium that is going to happen on November 5th. And I'm going to give a talk exactly about your question. So, right, so I'm not going to go into that too much, but one thing that we can think about, and that's why constantly I tell to myself, and I share that with you as well, with all of you, that we have to celebrate the small victories. victories,
Yes.
because you are absolutely right. There is so much to be done, and and um, and sometimes, if we just keep on looking, like, we are climbing a mountain, and we just look about how much I still have to climb to get to the top, and we lose track of what we have done already. But sometimes we have to look back and see, oh my God, okay, there is a lot for me to do, but look how much I have done already. So I think in my personal case, this is what really helps me to keep going. When I was at the bottom of the mountain, I thought, well, I'm never gonna do it. Now I'm 20% up, and I did it, so I can do the rest. So I think that there is the only way not to be dismayed by everything that is happening, remembering that this is a time of transition. There is a time of revolving us, of really causing this kind of uneasiness, leading us to this uneasiness that will make us question about our lives, our values, and change behaviors. If everything is okay, well, there's no need to change, right? If we are super happy, or if we are just okay, living life uneventful, but also it doesn't shake us that much. But sometimes once something happens, not necessarily with us, but around us, that can somehow provoke an impact in us, is when we start thinking, okay, maybe I need to bring something else to the table. I need to start seeing life in a different perspective. And unfortunately, like I said, I always say, we are not here, embracing suffering and pain and adversities. On the contrary, but we have to admit that sometimes it's the only way that it happens. And while you were talking, I was thinking, the image that came to my mind feels like, Joanna de Angelis is that mother or father that comes to a point and call that she or he has to call. Let's say she now, because I'm talking about Joanna de Angelis, that she has to call her children, a daughter, a son, to have this adult conversation. You see? Okay, now I have to talk to you about the facts of life.
Oh boy.
Right? And so
yeah.
this is what she's doing now. She's shaking us up. She's bringing some of the reality that we're not part of our childish ways, spiritually speaking. But now it means that we are growing, that we already can have that adult conversation. That's why sometimes, this first chapter, for instance, I was thinking, oh my God, one of the Angelis. I don't know if if I didn't have this commitment, if I would get this book, read this first chapter, and continue, because this is so hard.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Just like teenagers, when you talk to them, what do? They say, oh, Ma, please stop.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. I don't want to hear it.
I said, do you want people to put this book aside? That's how you start this book? Really?
No.
But yes, right?
I'm intrigued. I want to continue. I know.
Yeah, right. Okay, so let's finish here. The ambitious pursuit of things that have immediate meaning has replaced the truly legitimate values of the emotions, namely prayer, meditation, solidarity, and fraternal affection. No more time for that, right? The call for a change of conduct is urgent. One that seeks new focuses of existential interests, such as finding peace, charitable endeavors, immortality. Due to their gregarious instinct, human beings need other human beings who contribute many resources, especially in the emotional area of affectivity, in order to identify endeavors on behalf of progress and social, economic, moral, and ethical balance. So what she's saying here, that we need each other to put together things that it's going to put us up. Like, for instance, what we are doing here, right? If I were here alone, just talking to myself, right? We have to have a group. We have to have this interaction. That's why, and we bring this, that all of us is contributing, even to people that later on will have access to this recording as well. So fraternity, now replaced by individualism, must be geared to the whole general coexistence, including nature. So here even she talks about ecology a little bit, right? This respect for the living forces of the universe will lead to the destruction of human beings sooner or later. And remember, we are going to be the ones that will come back, right, and deal with our consequence. It is imperative to work through education using every means possible to bring about serious, well-structured objectives for existence. A life without a well-delineated meaning, one that is stimulating and energetic, becomes just a vegetative phenomenon, which must be changed to entail the dynamic of self-awareness. So, an idle life, like she says, an idle in the sense of, doing something good, proactive in favor of oneself, of the collectivity, of nature, is the things that we have to do. I mean, do we have alone to change the world? No. But Gandhi, do the changes in yourself you want to see in the world. So if we just take care of ourselves, it's going to be good enough. Any comments or questions so far? Let's see how much we have here. Okay, just one more. Okay, everyone craves and desires freedom, which only acquires meaning when accompanied by responsible behavior, so that it's not devolve into debauchery or evolve into debauchery, and is happening at this moment everywhere in the civilized world. This unruliness, the frivolousness with which highly meaningful issues are treated when they hit rock bottom, make room for arbitrary, cruel governments that crucify countries and keep them under painful, degrading injunctions. Talking about, as if it was written yesterday, right? I mean, here she's actually describing what is happening, in terms of wars, cruel governments, crucifying other countries. Hence, revising the concept of existence is key to filling one's inner world with motivation by performing meaningful tasks that pose ongoing challenges. Thus, love for one's neighbor as a result of love for oneself becomes a preventive and healing therapy for any empty existence consumed in anguish or indescribable suffering. It's amazing how she makes a point here. Love the neighbor as a result of love for oneself.
Yes, yes.
I cannot not love the neighbor if I don't love myself.
Exactly.
When one seeks to understand that the meaning of life does not consist of amusements or ostentation, one perceives that the ideals of the good are unpostponable. And by surrendering oneself to their attainment through edifying relationships, in which fraternity is responsible for the construction of duty, one achieves inner victory. So thinking and understanding here, it doesn't mean that we cannot go after you know uh, enjoying life as well, but understanding that it's not all about it. On the contrary, right, it represents, in terms of the spiritual life, it doesn't represent that much. Proceeding along such lines, everyone who is dedicated to love, to through friendships, will discover that that is the goal to be achieved, and that mutual help is the objective to which everyone should dedicate themselves. Modern society needs to understand that individuals are reborn in the physical body in order to find plenitude, and not exclusively to meet the lower biological needs according to Maslow well thought out studies. Maslow's, they have this theory, the theory of they call it pyramid of Maslow's, where he puts, he starts with the basic needs that we have in life, is starting from, of course, the care for the material aspect of life, the physical, the biological body aspects of life, and going until we reach the stages of self-actualization, of the things of the spirits. Therefore, the education of the Freudian libido, the overcoming of the conflict of Adlerian inferiority, the deep understanding of neurosis according to Harney, and the illumination of the Jungian shadow resurfaced. Shadow is our, our negative side, the things there are there stored sometimes in the subconscious, resurface in the Kardashian concept when it affirms that without charity there is no salvation. Sometimes I think that when we talk about Spiritist motto being without charity there is no salvation, it's hard for people to get its deep meaning. And Joanna de Angelis, in just one page, demonstrate to us that, all the scientists have been, trying to understand the spirit nature, right? That is, let's say, behind or commanding this physical body. And she points out that only love, starting with love for oneself, and then love towards others, fraternity, and the action into good, into doing something good, in whatever it is within our possibilities as well, is the only way to live. And all of this can be summarized in without charity there is no salvation. The salvation of oneself is not related to, oh God, okay, she's being charitable, I'm going there and grab her and bring it to heaven or to my kingdom. It's not about it. It's about, personal growth, personal fulfillment, and all of that is starting with us feeling worth, remembering that we are children of God, that we are special, that we are unique, and we are individuals that are extremely loved by a kind of love that we do not even fathom to understand, because it's transcendental in such a way that we do not understand. And that we are here to each time more open ourselves to this understanding of being loved, of letting love grow in ourselves, even when we see us failing, even when we see us not capable of marching on the speed that we would like to march towards these goals that we have assigned to ourselves, but just not to let go of everything that we have done already, everything that we have conquered throughout the centuries, and just moving forward. Pain will be part of it, happiness, being proud of ourselves, of our achievements, but then we have to keep on going. Any question, comment, or?
What I find really difficult to understand is that we know we are depleting and destroying our natural resources, and which will eventually result in our extinction. So why do we keep on doing it? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Marlene, it doesn't. It's because it's really hard, right? I mean, and we many times let ourselves just be swayed by the waves that are happening around us, and we don't have that much incentive, so to say, motivation when we look around and doesn't see things getting into place. On the contrary, even sometimes friends, family members will come and say, "Oh, this is crazy, you're never going to do it," and it's hard already for ourselves. I mean, so that's why there is this saying, old habits die hard, right? Because it is not easy. It is a process. And I always like to compare that to any, it could be any new thing we will be start doing. I always think about, learning how to play the piano. I'm not going to be able to do that overnight. It's going to be hard to learn about music, to learn about the notes, there are so many strokes in the piano, the whites, the blacks, and the rhythm, and the exercising of the hand muscles, but also the back, the way I have to sit straight, all of those things. So we cannot achieve that overnight, and I don't know why. In terms of spiritual things, we have this idea that okay, it's like taking a pill and immediately it's going to make us transform. There is no shortcut. There is just hard work. But yes, I understand completely your frustration, or your comment, because I feel that myself. I mean, with everything, like, I said before, the knowing and the doing by the Spirit Emmanuel, right? But we will get there. Like I said, I can already see that I walk it up 20%. There's 82 to go further, but okay, I already did that. And
But did you realize that this is a common challenge for everybody, and doesn't matter how far back you go in history? The Greek philosophers, even the spiritual gurus, they all talk about human behavior, right?
Yes.
So that's I would say the mission of being a human being is always create that balance and find that balance, right?
And exactly, and this is what makes us unique as well, because in our personal ability of doing that, we will advance, because there are so many fields of life. I mean, I may succeed better in one field, but there are others that I have to work more, and then other people that will will not succeed in the ones that I do, but in the other ones, and we living in society and depending on one of this codependence that we have, and learning from one another with a name that at the end, with this relationship, this living together, will lead us to value everyone and to love everyone, starting from ourselves. Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard, and that the transition phase.
It is, and the beautiful thing is that we are not stones, right? Stones don't change unless somebody move,
Yeah.
right? But the stones don't change by themselves, and we do
Mhm.
change. That's the reason
Yeah.
we reincarnate to get better.
Mhm.
It's learning and evolving is the thing, and that's
Mhm.
part of the challenges of trying to evolve, go
Yes,
across all these obstacles.
exactly. And today, because of there is the day that we celebrate Francis of Assisi, uh, Joanna de Angelis starts her book with addressing herself to Francis of Assisi. She lived with him in a previous incarnation when he was Francis of Assisi. She was Claire of Assisi. So they have a very close uh, relationship, and since then they have been collaborating with one another, and it is beautiful what she writes to him right at the beginning of this book that I'm going to share here with you. The first page: Father Francis, everyone thinks of you as a gentle lamb. However, you are a great storm that came down from heaven to earth to change the structure of love in the world. Everyone thinks and talks about your humility, but they forget that you are a powerful warrior who, instead of serving human beings, fights for their Lord. Everyone praises your selflessness, forgetting your greatest ambition, which is the victory of the kingdom of God. You wore the torn tunic of the, the
Poor.
poor to show them the clothing of light worn by the blessed. They led you, sorry, they fed you pigs is law because you nourished yourself on the sustenance of God. They cast stones at you because you were like a king, crowned with thorns in the name of the solar king. Now, the second page. Oh, sorry.
Mm.
Can you see this or no? The
No.
second page? No.
Yeah.
Okay, let me start sharing. Sorry, I don't know how to do that one after next.
Okay.
Father Francis, hearken to the cry of the desperate and the crazy laughter of the unbridled passions. Domitius Nero sang while home burned, and Jesus and he asked his disciples to put out the flames with their blood in the circus and to light the flames with their body as they burned to banish the night. Once again, madness sets fire to earth's realms, and your disciples shed tears to douse the consuming flames of passions that burn, or they become living torches to warm those who have become frozen in the madness of pleasure, putting you in the rear. In the script containing your remains the civilized world, news dominated by technology and tormented for love. Oh, sweet Father Francis, lift us to sing the melody of hope and peace with you on the roads of the world, just as you did, your very humble servant always, Joanna. Dolce amore di vita mia, a sweet love of my life.
Mm. It's
It's
beautiful.
beautiful, right? So, like she says here, your disciple shed tears to douse the consuming flames of passion is not easy, but we will get there. And this is our final prayer for today.
Mm.
And next week we will continue with chapter 2. I don't have it here with me, the title, but I will have it ready for next week. Okay. If okay, I'll stop recording.